Hey guys, Sean here. So if you have been investing to gold for a while, you know it's always best to go physical, right? You want the metal in your hand. After all, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But the scary thing today is that even with the physical metal, there are a lot of scams going on, and a lot of hardworking people are losing their money, and that isn't the way gold investing should be. Now, there are so many types of traps out there, like the classic numismatic coin scams. These involve sleazy dealers shilling expensive rare coins to older people for sky high premiums, which I find absolutely repulsive, or the classic copper or tungsten plated gold bars that can even fool professionals into thinking it's the real deal, right? But the one that really takes the cake, the one that really amazes me today, is the scam that is the gold Ponzi scheme, right? This scam really pisses me off. It's the classic Bernie Madoff all over again, but it's shinier and somehow less classy, right? And the big issue isn't just the scammers themselves, but it's the mindset of the victims, right? It really shows us how greedy our society has become, and I think that is the true problem. So in this video, I really want to break down this gold Ponzi scheme and really have a bit of a discussion on why many investors today are greedy little timmies. Let's dive in. So the biggest problem with the gold Ponzi scheme is that it targets one of the biggest needs people have, right? And that's getting a good return or income from your investment every year. It really scratches that primal itch we have of consistent gains, making progress. And when you throw in silly words like guaranteed or risk-free into the mix, even a conservative investor could turn into a greedy little monster, right? So this is how the scam works. The monkeys will first sell you the real physical gold to sucker you in, right? Sell you the real stuff, the good stuff, so that you can go and tell a friend and get the word of mouth going, right? That's the most important thing. Then almost immediately they pull you to a dark corner downstairs and they tell you to store the gold with them, and they'll pay you 20, 30, or even 40% returns every year, guaranteed returns on the gold. And most people will suddenly transform into a greedy little leprechaun and start rubbing their hands, right? It's the classic Bernie scheme all over again, guys. It has many names. Some people call it the gold buyback scheme. I call it the golden Bernie scam, right? They'll sucker in new people to pay off the first few investors, and sooner or later, the whole scheme will collapse and everyone is left holding the bag. Now, the smarter ones actually charge their customers higher premiums on the physical gold. I kid you not, right? Many scams go as far as to making you pay double the spot price on the gold upfront, then they pay you back with the interest, right? It's quite ridiculous and ingenious at the same time. So it's actually quite smart on their part because it helps to keep the scam going longer and they can sucker in more teamies. Now, you would think that people are actually smarter than this, but no, it doesn't matter if you're in the United States, Singapore, Poland, or Taiwan. There are just so many reports of people allegedly falling to the scams that's both hilarious and sad at the same time. Now, we are talking about seasoned investors and hardworking folks alike who lost all their life savings. There'll always be greedy people, and we all know the saying, right? A fool and his money are soon parted. So I believe the big problem actually lies with our weakness of only seeing the possibility of high returns and not the probabilities, right? That's the difference. It's like telling you an investment could triple in value next year, but actually has a 99% chance of going to zero. Sounds a little familiar, right? And the crazy thing is that many people will still buy it and just focus on the upside, right? A smart investor always considers the downside risk, and it's so obvious in this gold Ponzi scheme, right? The people can just simply run away with your gold. How complex is that? They can just pack up and go. And that's the thing about the need to hold physical gold in your possession, right? So when you store your gold with these scams, you are just getting like an IOU, right? A piece of paper that is backed up by nothing, right? They'll hand you some fancy agreement printed on paper, but the fact still remains, right? Your physical gold is gone, right? And at least bonds like US treasuries are backed up by taxpayer dollars, and the government can basically just print money to satisfy the obligations, right? At least bonds are safer in that respect, which is quite ridiculous, right? We are trying to compare bonds now to physical gold. Now, we all know that the scam will always collapse, and I'll go through why, right? So, when it comes to the case for gold, it's a little special because it's a physical metal, and many investors think that just because it's gold, there's some mystical voodoo method to generate cash from it, right? And this is where the scammers really did their homework this time, and they use the benefits of gold, right? They sell it as an inflation hedge and real sound money, which is technically true. And that's the dangerous part, right? It covers up the weakness of it just being a block of metal that doesn't earn any income. So it's kind of easy to see why some people do fall for it, right? And the big problem here is that there are only two ways to make money from physical gold, and both doesn't make sense for the returns from the Ponzi scheme, right? So the first is gold leasing. And if you're unfamiliar, gold leasing is just basically what central banks do to earn some money on their gold that is sitting in the vaults, right? So they loan out their gold to the bigger banks out there, and the interest rates honestly are kind of pathetic at near zero, or maybe at most 1 or 2% over the last 10 years. So maybe the Ponzi scheme people, they are smart enough to lease their gold, and they lease it to jewelers who need the gold to make jewelry, right? So basically, you lend the jewelers big blocks of gold that they can melt down to make beautiful chains and bracelets that they can sell at a huge markup. So it sounds a bit like a win-win proposition, right? Everyone wins. The jewelers will return their gold at the end of the day with some cash interest back. Well, the big problem is that the gold lease rates are extremely low, and probably just a few percentage points, right? And it's normally lower than cash loans, right? So how in the world is that really going to cover the 20% or maybe even 30% annual returns the gold Ponzi schemes promise, right? And obviously they can't. The only way is to take the gold and sell it off for cash and start gambling in the market, right? Start speculating. And let's just think a bit, right? Which investment can give a big return while being as risk-free as possible? Now, we don't even need to talk about bonds here because it doesn't really make sense. Bonds returns like what, 1, 2, or maybe 3% at most. The only thing I can think of is the S&P 500, which averages around 10.5% a year. Let's just call it 11% a year. And even that is not enough to cover the return as well. And we all know the S&P doesn't just go up in a straight line, right? There could be years where it just trends sideways or even takes a crash, right, during a recession. And the thing is that besides, if it's the S&P 500, any investor can just invest into the bloody index themselves, right? And that is why any gold buyback scheme is almost 99% a Ponzi scheme and is doomed to fail, right? Especially if the returns they state are guaranteed. And we're not even talking about, the salaries of the scammers and their goon squad, right? They have to pay their goons as well. So remember, guys, if any investment, and I don't care whether it's gold, real estate, or some fancy-mancy stock, if the investment doesn't make sense, right, or if it sounds too complex, right, it is probably a fat scam. I think collectively we all really need to calm down, slow down, and think logically, right? We need to understand that the main reason why we all buy physical gold or silver isn't to get rich overnight, right? It's really to stay rich, right? We want to buy those metals to protect our purchasing power and stay rich. I mean, sure, if suddenly gold gets revalued or people suddenly pile into the market, they realize that inflation really can't be controlled, gold could seriously rise by quite a bit in a short amount of time, right? Gold did fly up from $300 to over $1,800 today an ounce in just like what, 20 years? And there's no denying that. But gold's main purpose is to preserve your wealth for the long haul, like how he has done for thousands of years, right? And I believe that this is what we should focus on. Remember, guys, the main sales pitch these Ponzi monkeys have is to try to convince you that it is a waste of your gold just sitting around and not doing anything, right? But here's the funny thing, here's the hilarious thing. Have you ever noticed that if you are legitimately storing your gold elsewhere for security, and I don't care whether it's buying a big safe and putting it at home or storing your gold bars in a private vault, you will be the one paying money for security, right? You are the one paying money. And there'll be some sort of security fee that you need to fork out to really make this possible, right? It makes total sense, it makes logical sense. No institution or security company in their right mind will secure your gold for free. And when they have to come up with the labor and the space, the security and the safes to keep it safe. And so If some weird company suddenly pops out from nowhere and they tell you they can do it for free and even give you a return on it, you really gotta think twice on that. They're probably doing something fishy with your bullion. Now, let's say you manage to see through the BS of the Ponzi monkeys, they will likely pull out the ultimate threat most gold investors are terrified to hear, and that is the threat of confiscation, right? They'll go back in time, they'll magically transport you back in time with them and tell you the long story of how Roosevelt confiscated gold back in 1933 and how they can do it again. So I've made a video specially dedicated to it, link in the description below, and I have to tell you, a confiscation is highly unlikely. If you live in a democratic country with the rule of law, it is not really feasible for governments to do that because they'll just be officially declaring gold as the supreme currency, as supreme money, and their own, dollar will be more or less considered as worthless, right? So if I were the government, I think the governments would rather just tax the hell out of it when you buy or sell gold and just get your dollars that way, right? They won't really go all the way for confiscation. So don't fall for the fear pitch, right? That's how many companies actually pitch their numismatic coin scams to new investors at the same time. I think it's really important to treat gold for what it is and not what you would like it to be. It's not some fancy financial instrument that will give birth to money. It is physical metal that stores wealth that really should be in your own private possession, right? You should be holding it and truly decentralizing it from anything, especially from scammers trying to pull a fast one on you. So, personally, I buy and store gold to protect my purchasing power so that I can use that capital for more investments down the road, right? I am very happy paying a small amount to private vaults to store my gold securely. I am not delusional and expect to make 10%, 20%, or even 30% yearly returns on my gold from some harebrained gold buyback scheme, right? Are you kidding me? Remember, guys, it's so cheesy. But I have to say it, right? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? If even the market professionals out there can't beat the market, no Ponzi scheme can, right? So let me know what you think. Do you know of any poor soul that fell for gold scams? Did you encounter one yourself, right? Let me know in the comments below, guys. And if you like today's message, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for more gold and silver videos. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.